Let's talk about something that cuts deeper than most people will admit. You gave your heart to someone. You were loyal, you were real, and then, one day, they pulled away, and not just away, but towards someone else. That sting you feel, that's not just rejection, that's betrayal. Rejection isn't a reflection of your worth, it's a redirection to your growth. When someone chooses to walk away from you, especially for someone else, it's easy to internalize it as a verdict on who you are. You start to dissect your every action, your every word, and your every flaw. You ask yourself if you were not attractive enough, not smart enough, not exciting enough. That internal voice can become brutal, whispering doubts that turn into loud self-criticism. But here's what you must understand deeply. Their decision to leave wasn't necessarily about you. Sometimes people walk away not because you lack something, but because they themselves are lost, confused, or chasing temporary validation they believe lies elsewhere. Rejection often feels personal, but in many cases, it's about the other person's journey and insecurities. Perhaps they are chasing ego boosts. Perhaps they fear real intimacy. Maybe they're still running from their own wounds. Whatever their reason, it's not a measurement of your value. It's a reflection of where they are in their life, not where you are in yours. And when someone leaves, it opens up a space, painful as it may be, for something else to grow. Rejection redirects you to a new path, one that may not have been possible if you had remained stuck trying to earn love from someone who was never truly ready to give it. Think about moments in life where things didn't work out, and in hindsight, you were grateful. The job you didn't get led you to one that suited you better. The friends who turned on you made room for deeper, more authentic relationships. The same principle applies here. Rejection clears the way. It burns bridges that were never meant to carry your full weight anyway. The pain you feel now is the friction of transformation. When someone leaves, it forces you to see where your identity was overly attached to their approval. It reveals the areas where you outsourced your happiness to someone else's behavior, when in reality, your joy was always meant to be rooted within you. There's a strange kind of beauty in heartbreak, not in the suffering itself, but in what it awakens. It's the spark that pushes you to rebuild, to reflect, to ask deeper questions. Who am I without this person? What do I want that I was ignoring just to keep them around? How have I been settling, shrinking, or bending to avoid being abandoned? The answers to these questions don't just help you recover, they help you evolve. The rejection becomes a catalyst, not a conclusion. It lights a fire inside you that demands something more. More self-respect, more boundaries, more alignment with your true desires. It's in the silence after someone walks away that your inner voice gets louder. And when you actually listen to that voice, not the insecure one fueled by rejection, but the wise one fueled by truth, you realize that you were never meant to stay where you were. You were being pushed towards something higher, your standards rise, your self-awareness deepens, you start showing up for yourself in ways you never did before. The version of you that emerges on the other side of rejection is sharper, stronger, and more conscious. You've seen what doesn't work, and you become less willing to entertain it again. You no longer tolerate being breadcrumbed, gaslit, or chosen only when it's convenient for someone else. That's what growth looks like, not the absence of pain, but the ability to rise through it with clarity and self-respect. Rejection is life's way of saying, there's something more aligned for you, but you won't find it if you keep trying to fix what's already broken. It's the storm that clears out the dead weight and reveals what you actually need to thrive. When you start looking at rejection as a gift wrapped in uncomfortable packaging, you begin to take back control of the story. You stop waiting for someone to validate you, and you start becoming the person you were always meant to be. That's the redirection, not to another relationship, but to a deeper, more unshakable version of yourself. Stop chasing closure. Their actions already gave you the answers. One of the hardest parts of being left, especially for someone else, is the mental loop we get stuck in afterward. We want to understand why. We want the moment of truth where they sit down and explain their choice in a way that makes us feel at peace. We crave a neatly tied explanation that makes the pain make sense, and because of that desire, we hold on. We keep the door slightly open, hoping for the phone call, the apology, the text that will finally answer all the questions swirling in our minds. But the reality is, people's actions are often far more honest than their words ever will be. The way they left, the way they replaced you, the way they avoided accountability, those are all answers. Closure, as we imagine it, is rarely satisfying. Even when someone explains why they did what they did, it often leaves us with more confusion or pain. Because what we're truly searching for isn't just information. We're searching for a feeling. We want validation. We want them to acknowledge our worth, to admit they made a mistake, to tell us we didn't deserve to be treated that way. But the problem with seeking that externally is that we give away our power. We place our healing in the hands of the person who hurt us. We delay moving on because we think we can't until they help us do it. And sometimes that help never comes. They don't explain. They don't apologize. They move on as if nothing happened, while we stay behind holding the weight of the unfinished. But the truth is, the closure you're looking for is already there, just not in the form you expected. Their behavior gave you the truth. They chose someone else. They disrespected your commitment. They walked away. That choice is the closure. It tells you everything you need to know about their priorities, their emotional maturity, and their ability to handle real connection. You don't need to wait for them to spell it out. The story is already complete, even if it ended in a way you didn't want. The desire for closure is natural. You invested time, energy, and love, and it's human to want a conclusion that feels fair. But growth begins when you stop chasing fairness and start choosing peace. You reclaim your energy the moment you stop rereading the same chapter, looking for sentences that were never written. You gain power when you say, "I've seen enough." That strength doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes from realizing you no longer need them to move forward. We often think closure is something someone else gives us. But the most powerful closure is the one you give yourself. It's when you look at the relationship with clear eyes, stop romanticizing what it was, and start accepting what it really became. You stop needing them to explain because you recognize the damage wasn't caused by a mystery. It was caused by their choices, and those choices told you everything. Their silence, their distance, their replacement of you, those were messages, even if they didn't come wrapped in explanations. The real transformation happens when you shift from asking, "Why did they do this to me?" to asking, "Why did I tolerate it for as long as I did?" That's where your power begins to return. That's when you start turning your attention inward, not in blame, but in curiosity. What did this experience reveal about what I need to heal? What did it teach me about my boundaries, my self-worth, my standards in love? Those are the questions that truly matter. They don't depend on another person's confession. They depend on your own courage to look within and face what this experience stirred up. Closure isn't a final conversation, it's a decision to accept what is, to stop fighting for what's already gone, and to trust that what lies ahead is far greater than anything you lost. Focus on becoming the best version of yourself, silently and powerfully. When someone walks away from you, especially for someone else, the temptation is to prove something. You want to show them what they lost. You want to remind them of what they gave up. It's natural to want to be seen, to be validated, to somehow send the message that you're doing better without them. But the most impactful transformation you can ever go through isn't the one you flaunt online, and it's not the one you use to make someone jealous. It's the one that happens in the quiet. It's the inner shift, the realignment of your focus from them to yourself, from your heartbreak to your healing, from proving to simply becoming. The best version of you doesn't need an audience. It doesn't rely on attention. It doesn't rise from bitterness or spite. It rises from intention, from doing the hard work behind the scenes, the kind of work that builds self-respect instead of ego. You begin to look at your life not through the lens of what someone else abandoned, but through the lens of what you want to cultivate. Who do you want to be? What kind of energy do you want to attract? What habits, values, and dreams matter most to you now that you've been given this clean slate? These are the questions that matter far more than whether they're watching your stories or regretting their choices. You start to realize that becoming the best version of yourself isn't about competition. It's not about being better than the person they chose. It's not about outrunning your pain. It's about alignment. You make peace with your past, even if it hurt. You use that pain as a chisel to shape your future. The heartbreak becomes a tool, not a wound. You stop needing to be seen by them because you're finally starting to see yourself. You recognize your own patterns. You rebuild your confidence from the inside. You start treating yourself like someone who matters deeply, and you stop entertaining anything or anyone that doesn't reflect that truth. In this quiet rebuilding, you start setting new standards, not out of pride, but out of clarity. You're no longer interested in chasing someone who is unsure about you. You're no longer attracted to chaos disguised as passion. You stop settling for halfway love or conditional attention. Instead, you pour your energy into what expands you. You make your health a priority. You surround yourself with people who uplift you, not drain you. You read more, reflect more, create more. You become intentional with your time, your space, and your energy. Every small decision starts to reflect the love you're learning to give yourself. And what happens next is powerful. You begin to glow in a way that doesn't need validation. You carry a peace that doesn't depend on who comes or goes. You become magnetic not because you're trying to be, but because you're living from a place of self-respect and wholeness. You stop broadcasting your progress and start embodying it. There's no need to prove that you've moved on because you truly have. You're not pretending. You're not playing games. You're building something real within yourself. And ironically, it's often in this silent transformation that the people who walked away begin to notice. But by then something has changed. You're no longer waiting to be noticed. You're not waiting for their regret. You've outgrown the version of yourself that needed it. Your growth is now a byproduct of self-worth, not heartbreak. You've evolved beyond needing them to witness your rise because you are finally living a life that feels good on the inside, whether anyone is watching or not. Real power is not in making them jealous, but in reclaiming your dignity. When someone leaves you for someone else, it can stir up a storm of insecurity, pain, and a deep desire to be noticed again. The knee-jerk response is often to prove a point, to show them what they lost, to make them feel regret, to make them wish they had stayed. That impulse is human, but it's not power. True power doesn't come from orchestrating someone's guilt or attention. It comes from standing in your own self-worth without needing to be seen. It's not in the carefully curated posts, the strategic silence, or trying to look unbothered. It's in genuinely not needing their validation anymore because you've remembered who you are, and you're living in alignment with that truth. Dignity begins when you stop performing pain and start honoring it. You allow yourself to feel the betrayal, the confusion, the rejection, but you don't let those feelings control your actions. You don't react to provoke. You don't post with the secret hope they'll be watching. You stop trying to play the chess game of emotional one-upmanship. Instead, you rise by focusing inward. You ask yourself what healing looks like for you, not what performance looks like for them. There is incredible strength in walking away quietly, with grace, with restraint. Not because you're weak, but because you've realized that reclaiming your peace matters more than proving your point. So many people exhaust themselves trying to craft the perfect comeback story, one that screams, "Look at me now." But in chasing that moment, they lose the opportunity to actually heal. They stay emotionally tied to the person who hurt them, letting that person's attention or lack of it dictate their self-esteem. But when you focus on your dignity instead, the entire dynamic changes. You no longer operate from lack. You begin to ask better questions. How do I want to feel at the end of the day? What boundaries have I been neglecting? What parts of myself did I lose trying to keep that relationship alive? These are the questions that restore your power. Reclaiming your dignity also means rewriting the narrative you tell yourself. It's easy to think you weren't enough, that if you were different, they would have stayed. But someone else's inability to value you is not your identity. Their decision to walk away says more about where they are in their journey than it does about your worth. You don't need to retaliate. You don't need to fight to be seen. What you need is to see yourself clearly again, to hold your own hand and say, "I may not have deserved what happened, but I absolutely deserve what comes next." That mindset is powerful. It shifts the focus from them to you. It puts you back in the driver's seat of your own healing. Sometimes the most powerful move is the one that's not loud. It's choosing silence over revenge. It's declining to participate in the drama. It's letting your actions, your peace, your growth speak louder than any words ever could. The person who left may or may not feel regret, but your life is no longer about whether they do. It's about how you move forward without losing your integrity, your softness, or your strength. That's the quiet kind of power that doesn't seek attention but inevitably draws it. People notice when you carry yourself with grace after being broken. They notice when you grow without bitterness. And while the goal is never to be noticed, the reality is, true dignity radiates a kind of strength that can't be faked or ignored. It's in how you walk, how you speak, how you hold your head up, not because everything is perfect, but because you refuse to let someone else's rejection define you. They may have left thinking they upgraded, but your evolution will make them regret it. When someone chooses to walk away from you and move towards someone else, it can feel like a personal downgrade, like you've been replaced or discarded for something seemingly shinier or newer. You might start comparing yourself to the person they left you for, analyzing every detail, wondering what they have that you didn't. That cycle is draining, and it keeps you locked in a version of yourself that's begging to be chosen again. But what if the focus shifted from comparison to creation? What if instead of obsessing over who they picked, you poured every ounce of that energy into evolving into someone you're proud of, someone you actually admire? The truth is, people often leave relationships chasing a fantasy. They think the next person will fix everything they felt was missing. They believe that by changing partners, they'll change their emotional experience. But what they don't realize is that if they haven't changed themselves, the same patterns will follow them. The same conflicts, the same emptiness, the same emotional immaturity. Meanwhile, you have the chance to do something radically different. You have the opportunity to grow, not for them, not to get them back, but to rise into the next version of yourself that doesn't settle for half, love, confusion, or mixed signals. Your evolution isn't about competition. It's about clarity. It's about waking up and choosing to stop living in the shadow of someone else's decision. It's about stepping into your power, emotionally and mentally, in ways that have nothing to do with who they're with now. When you begin healing, when you start growing, when you find yourself pursuing goals, setting boundaries, learning lessons, showing up for your life with purpose, something shifts inside you. You're no longer motivated by trying to make them see what they lost. You're motivated by what you're discovering within yourself. People always notice when you change, not the superficial kind of change, but the real stuff. When you start carrying yourself differently, when your energy becomes more grounded, when your standards are raised not out of pride, but out of knowing what you deserve, it creates a magnetic shift. They may not say it, but they feel it. Regret often doesn't show up in words. It shows up in hesitation, in their silence, in the way they check your story without liking your post, in the way they reach out but have nothing meaningful to say. But the beauty is, by the time they feel it, you've already moved forward. You've already detached. You've already built a life that no longer revolves around being chosen by someone who once overlooked you. Your growth is not meant to be a show for them. It's a personal revolution. And here's the paradox: they left thinking they were upgrading, thinking they would find someone better. But what they didn't anticipate was your evolution. They didn't see the strength you would tap into. They didn't expect the peace you would find. They underestimated the resilience of someone who chooses healing over bitterness, silence over drama, progress over pettiness. And as they sit with the reality of their choices, as the sparkle of what's new begins to fade, what stands out isn't just what they lost. It's how far you've come without needing them. The most unforgettable thing you can do isn't to scream your worth. It's to become someone who no longer waits to be seen, someone who no longer seeks to prove, someone who embodies value in every area of their life. That kind of presence lingers longer than any heartbreak. It's not revenge, and it's not a performance. It's simply the natural consequence of choosing yourself so completely that regret becomes their burden, not yours. When someone leaves you for someone else, it can feel like your entire world is collapsing, like you've been discarded, forgotten, replaced. But the truth is, their choice was never the final word on your value. The real story begins not with their betrayal, but with your response to it. Your power doesn't come from making them regret it. It comes from rising with dignity, rebuilding quietly, and refusing to let someone's departure define your future. You don't need their closure, you don't need their attention, and you certainly don't need their validation. Because when you shift your energy inward, when you begin evolving not for revenge, but for peace, something remarkable happens. You stop surviving the heartbreak and start transforming through it. And in that transformation, you become the kind of person who doesn't just recover, you become unforgettable. Not because they came back, but because you never stopped moving forward.